Gene, we talked about this last week. This is where you start doing that as a fan. We do this in any sport, whether it's free agency and in professional sports or the NFL draft. If your NFL team is on the clock in the top 5, you start to have visions about the way it could look. This is what fans are now doing and frankly, it's what you should be doing at 1-5. I recommend you do this because at 1-5 at Florida State University on the heels of an ACC championship, yes, somebody has to go.
Yeah. Just asking for an overhaul, and I don't think there's any option other than that. I don't think anything less will be acceptable. I know I've heard enough from behind the scenes that the higher-ups, the very higher-ups that are making the ultimate decisions are very unhappy with the way things are going, are going to insist on some major changes being happening. So I don't know about those names being mentioned, but another one of the most interesting ones to me, we know there's going to be an overhaul, but will Mike Norvell give up play calling so he can focus on the bigger picture, focus on more time vetting players and recruiting and less time worrying about calling plays? Because maybe he does bring in someone, like you mentioned, UNLV's coach.
It's funny, Gene, 15 games or so ago, you would never have thought. You'd never have thought you'd be calling for Mike to delegate that particular part of his responsibilities. But, we're going to keep calling wide receiver screens. People are going to keep calling for somebody else to call the plays.
It truly is embarrassing watching this program diminish in a year that fast. And to Coach Mike Norvell, love him to death, but it's like he's broken and we can't give him back. There's no return fee. So, my coach, my defensive coach, I want Derek Mason. That's who I want. I want to go ahead and get Derek Nicholson as my linebacker coach. And then I want to go ahead and get the UNLV offensive coordinator. Go ahead and pay him, Mr. Marion. And then go ahead and get James Cooley back home from Georgia as a wide receiver coach. Those are my coaches. That's what I think needs to happen in order for our program to become successful is bring our people back home. Let us rebuild this thing the correct way and just clean house, gentlemen, because this has got to change, and I mean immediately.
About 7 years ago, we let go of one of our alums as an offensive line coach. And like Hyman Roth, I understood it because it was business. But what is it that Alice Atkins is still doing on our sidelines? Where's the business aspect of that? Because I don't understand it now. Why is this man still allowed to roam those sidelines? Because yet he hasn't recruited one decent offensive lineman. He hasn't developed one. He hasn't even picked up one in the transfer portal. So why is this guy still allowed to roam these sidelines? Please, somebody answer that for me. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome, Marlon. You're welcome.
Thanks,
We're going to get the Atkins question every week from Marlon, I think.
Yes.
They've brought in some dudes. I'm not going to say they brought in zero. Where are those young players? Like Jalen Early's had a moment or two. I'll grant you that. Andre Otto is in there because he has to be. I think he's going to be a pretty good player. But, Gene, it's not like there's this barrier because we're sending 4 dudes to the NFL and nobody can get on the field because the O-line's kicking ass. They're one of the worst in the country.
So we get a little bit a couple years ago fool's gold in this because they ran that counter so well 2 years ago. And they thought, well, this offensive line is finally good. They ran that one play really well. It seems like since then it's just been a massive drop off, even though you're getting more and more experience in there now. Atkins had more and more time to develop these guys. And Marlon's point is well taken. This is one of the worst offensive lines in college football, even though you got the most experience in college football. Something doesn't add up there. So, I mean, It's got to fall at the feet of Alex Atkins right now.
Well, and you can ask 2 easy follow-up questions to your point, Gene, which is, has Darius Washington gotten better? Has Maurice Smith gotten better? No.
Definitely not a snapping.
No.
We need to put more focus on how bad the defense is. You face Georgia Tech and BC when all you know they're going to do is line up and smack you in the face, and you can't stop it. And then you place a couple okay offenses, Memphis and Cal, and you feel good about yourself. And then you play SMU that absolutely embarrass you. And let's be honest tonight. If Clemson wanted to, they could have scored 50 tonight. They got to the 30-yard line, and they said, we're going to take our 3 points and go home. At some point, we got to look at, in the secondary, I don't know if it's Fuller and Surtain can't figure out how their scheme works, but we're 6 games into the season, and there's still dudes running wide open.
Yep.
And you got defensive backs looking at each other saying, oh, that's your guy. No, that's your guy. When are we going to stop allowing our defense to be so bad? That's what I got. Thanks, guys.
No, I appreciate it, Dave. And Gene, I think what we're falling into, unfortunately, here at 1 and 5 is, there are certain callers who want to make sure that their point is known about certain coaches, and Dave's not wrong. That's me. That's not me chiding you, Dave, because last week they ran more zone, Gene, and they had more zone coverage busts. And tonight there were some zone situations where, like, Kevin Knowles is the closest guy in the screen, but he's not in man-to-man in that situation. A couple of throws to the sideline. It's just there's a hole in the zone. They hit the hole in the zone because we're so damn predictable. So, yeah, there are moments where it looks like you're in the NFL preseason in terms of the lack of communication. But we're not in preseason at all. We're at the midpoint of the season. So, good call, Dave. We do appreciate the call.
Yeah, we went back to, early on we talked about the communication issues on that side of the ball that they've gotten slightly better there. But I don't know. Clemson could have scored 50 or 40, whatever the caller said. But I still think you got to give credit for them in the red zone. They did force Clemson to try those field goals. Sure, they let them get down there over and over and over again, to Dave's point. So yes, that is a big problem. But at least they stood up when they had to. They kept Florida State effectively, had a chance to, be in the game late. So that's something.
Jacob says, love the show, but I would have to agree. Brock played not that bad. I was surprised this was not a blowout, but go Noles for life. Well, that's what Gene Williams is talking about here. It's the red zone stops. If they go 4 out of 6 in the red zone with 1 touchdown, that's how you keep it to a 16-point margin. Just in situations, Florida State played okay, but 20-20, not so much. Clemson tonight averaged nearly 7 yards per play. Goodness gracious. And, after the second touchdown, of course, they give up the run to Maffa right after. This is what bad football teams do, is the moment that you're leaning on a phase of the game to help continue momentum, they find a way to muff a punt or take a penalty or give up a splash play or turn the ball over. It's just
throw a wide receiver screen or miss a snap.
This is the hallmark of a bad team.
This seems like a good drinking game. How will Florida State implode on this drive and spin the wheel?
If you want a slurred version of Florida State game, Colin show, we could do that.
Well, that'd be an in-game. I think that might be fun in-game if we ever did a live broadcast again. We'll just do that. And man, you and I, just as long as we're not driving anywhere, we'll just get hammered.